The WNBA playoffs have officially started, and if you thought the intensity couldn't get any higher, think again. Today, we're breaking down one of the most talked about moments in recent WNBA history, Caitlin Clark's playoff debut. What should have been a milestone in her young career quickly turned into a nightmare, but not for the reasons we expected. Let's talk about how one moment altered the course of an entire game and possibly the playoffs. Caitlin Clark has become a household name in basketball, a once-in-a-generation player with the ability to hit from anywhere on the court. But her first playoff game? That's the stuff of headlines, for all the wrong reasons. Let's dive into what went down. Let's set the stage. The Indiana Fever are playing against the Connecticut Sun in Game 1 of the playoffs. The ball tips off, excitement is in the air, but within the first few minutes, things take a dramatic turn. DiJonai Carrington of the Sun, in what looked like a routine defensive play, inadvertently pokes Caitlin Clark right in the eye. Clark immediately goes down, clutching her face, and the crowd falls silent. We've seen hard fouls before, but this one felt different. From that point on, you could tell something was off. Clark tried to shake it off and continue, but her usual spark was gone. You have to remember, Caitlin Clark isn't just any player. She's the heartbeat of the Fever's offense. When she struggles, the entire team feels it. Let's talk numbers. Caitlin Clark, on an average night, is a walking highlight reel. She averaged nearly 20 points per game during the regular season, and she's known for draining three-pointers like it's second nature. But that night, things were different. She ended the game with just 11 points on 4 of 17 shooting. Yes, that's just a 23.5% success rate, well below her usual 40+%. Even her court vision, something she's celebrated for, seemed off. Normally, Clark racks up assists like no other, creating plays where none exist. But after the injury, her assists dropped drastically, and several of her passes ended up in the hands of Sun defenders. It wasn't just her shooting eye that was affected, it was her entire game. When your star player is struggling, it's like a ripple effect across the whole team. Coach Christie's sides had to adapt on the fly, but nothing seemed to click. The Fever, who were already considered underdogs in this matchup, looked disoriented. They ended up losing the game 93-69, a scoreline that doesn't even tell the whole story. The defeat wasn't just in the numbers, it was in their spirit. You could see it on the faces of the Fever players. The confidence was gone, the rhythm disrupted. This wasn't just a loss, it felt like they never even got to put up a real fight. Losing a playoff game like this can leave a lasting impact, and the real question now is, how do they recover? Now, let's address the elephant in the room. Will the WNBA take action? DiJonai Carrington's hit on Caitlin Clark, while seemingly unintentional, has sparked a lot of conversation. Some fans and analysts are calling for a fine or suspension, while others believe it was just an unfortunate part of the game. Here's the thing, this isn't just about one play. If the WNBA doesn't address it, what kind of message does that send? We've seen stars in men's leagues get extra protection from the refs. Think LeBron James, Steph Curry, because they're the faces of the league. Should the WNBA be doing the same for Caitlin Clark, who's rapidly becoming the new face of women's basketball? Looking ahead to Game 2, all eyes are going to be on Clark and the Fever. Will Clark be 100%? If so, we might witness one of the greatest comeback performances in WNBA history. But if she's still struggling with vision issues, we could see the Fever once again out of sync. The Sun, on the other hand, will have to decide whether to stick with the same strategy. If Clark is still compromised, they may just rinse and repeat their Game 1 performance. But if Clark is back to full strength, don't be surprised if they double-team her, forcing the Fever's other stars, like Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston, to carry the load. But let's not forget about the mental aspect. Playoff basketball is just as much about what's going on in the mind as it is on the court. The Fever know they're one game away from elimination, and that kind of pressure can either make or break a team. The question is, will they rise to the occasion? If Clark isn't 100%, then it's going to be on the rest of the Fever to step up. Aaliyah Boston has been a revelation this season, and she may need to have the game of her career if the Fever are going to force a Game 3.
Wanted was to have an effect on the world that, you shine your own light, and I've always prided myself on shining my own light, loving others in the process, and I'm never not going to do that.
This incident raises some serious questions, not just for the Fever and Caitlin Clark, but for the WNBA as a whole. Caitlin Clark has single-handedly brought more attention to the league than we've seen in years. With packed arenas, lucrative TV deals, and social media buzz at an all-time high, the WNBA is at a critical juncture. Clark represents a new generation of talent that could push the WNBA into the mainstream spotlight. But what happens if physical play becomes a norm to shut down players like her? Will we see a league that allows physicality to dominate the game? Or will the WNBA protect its stars, ensuring they can play at their best without risking serious injury? Let's take a step back for a moment and look at the bigger picture. Caitlin Clark isn't just a standout in this playoff series, she's part of a larger movement that's redefining women's basketball. Clark, alongside players like Sabrina Ionescu and A'ja Wilson, represents a new era of the WNBA, one that's captivating fans like never before. These players aren't just making an impact on the court, they're cultural icons. Their influence extends far beyond the game itself. Social media has played a huge role in this. Caitlin Clark's long-distance threes, A'ja Wilson's dominant performances, and Sabrina Ionescu's triple-doubles have gone viral time and again. Each time they step on the court, these athletes are doing more than just winning games. They're building a brand, a narrative, and a connection with a new generation of fans. Think about it. In the last few years, we've seen WNBA players take control of their narratives in ways that were almost unheard of a decade ago. It's no longer just about what they do in the game, it's about who they are off the court. Caitlin Clark, for instance, isn't just known for her shooting skills. She's become a role model for young athletes, particularly girls, who look up to her determination, leadership, and her unapologetic style of play. As we turn our attention to the next game, one of the biggest questions on everyone's mind is Caitlin Clark's health. That black eye she sustained in Game 1 against the Connecticut Sun wasn't just a cosmetic issue. It clearly impacted her performance on the court, leading to one of her worst games of the season. But now, with the Fever's season hanging in the balance, all eyes are on Clark's recovery and how this injury will shape her performance in Game 2. Let's break it down. Clark only scored 11 points in Game 1, a far cry from her regular season average of 19.2. She also struggled from deep, hitting just 15% of her three-point attempts. The normally efficient playmaker was clearly off her game, and while she didn't want to use the injury as an excuse, it's hard to deny the effect it had on her shooting. Now, we know the hit was accidental, but that doesn't make it any less impactful. Eye injuries can seriously affect depth perception. And for a player like Clark, who relies on her shooting precision, any slight impairment can throw everything off. After the game, she acknowledged that while the eye injury hurt, she didn't feel it affected her ability to play. But her shooting numbers tell a different story. Clark, post-game interview. I felt like I was still getting good looks, they just didn't fall tonight. Obviously, the eye situation wasn't ideal, but I don't think it changed much. I just have to do better. So, what can we expect in Game 2? The Fever are facing elimination, and Caitlin Clark knows she needs to step up. The good news is, barring any unforeseen complications, Clark is expected to play. But will she be at 100%? That's the question that will define the Fever's chances. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think DiJonai Carrington's hit was intentional, or just part of the game? Should the WNBA step in and issue a fine or suspension, or let the series play out as is? Drop your comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. Game 2 is shaping up to be a must-watch event. Will Caitlin Clark bounce back and lead her team to victory? Or will the Connecticut Sun close out the series? Either way, we're in for an electrifying showdown. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon so you don't miss any updates, and I'll be back with more analysis after the next game.